This is an AI-driven personal finance advisor app called Finan Smart, built with Openai API, Next.js, Clerk, Tailwind CSS, and chadcn. In this one video, you will learn and build this app from the ground up. This is part of our AI series where we will build web apps with modern frameworks and tech stack. This is how the application works. This is the home page. On the NavBar, we have the logo on the left hand side, Finan Smart, and these two menu items. So when we scroll down, it welcomes us with a dashboard on how the application works or looks like. When we click on this dashboard, it gives us a summary of our finance. We have the Smart AI here, which based on your financial data, it's able to recommend or advise you on how to spend your money. So we have the total budget card, total spend, number of budgets, and sum of income streams. Scrolling down, we have a chart here which visually represents how you spend your money and the amount of money you spent on each items. And we have the latest budget over here on the right hand side. Beneath the chart, we have the latest expenses as well. And we can go ahead and create our own budget by clicking on this budget menu. By clicking on this create new budget, it shows a modal where I can choose my emoji that represents the budget very well. So let's click on food and select this fruit. So fruit is the budget name, and the amount we want to allocate to this budget is $100. Clicking on create budget is going to create everything for us inside the database, and the fruit was added to our database. We have the expenses tab as well, which lists all the expenses that we have, and we have the upgrade, which is a section for later improvement when we want to turn this into a software as a service. So first of all, let's open our Visual Studio Code and create a folder. I have here a folder named AI Expense Tracker. With this folder name being created, let's march straight to the Next.js official website and learn how to install Next.js. On the Getting Started page, we have the installation procedure, and the system requirement is Node.js 18.17 or later, and it supports all these operating systems, so Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. So we are interested in this installation procedure. We will copy this and head back to our Visual Studio Code and paste it right inside the terminal. Hit on enter, and it gives us the option to name our application. So in this case, I will go ahead and replace it with dot. Would you like to use TypeScript? No, for this application. And we are also not going to use ESLint. We would like to use Tailwind CSS, so we hit on yes. And we want the source directory, so yes. The app router, yes. And we want the import alias, the costume import alias, so we want that as well. And we want import alias, so we click on yes. Alright, so let's give this some few seconds to get installed. Alright, so Next.js has been installed successfully. Let's go ahead and install chadcn, which is going to be the package or the library that is going to help us build Tailwind CSS components very easily. So we head back and then move on to the chadcn documentation installation website. So the link for this will be placed in the description. Looking at the installation procedures, we have the frameworks. So we have Next.js, Vite, Remes, Gatsby, and so on and so forth. We are interested in Next.js, so we click on this. And since we have already created our Next.js project, we are going to run this chadcn UI command in our terminal. So we use yarn and copy it, head back to our VS Code terminal, paste it, and hit enter. This is going to get chadcn installed for us. Default and neutral. Yes, and then we wait for it to be installed. Alright, chadcn has been installed successfully. So now, when we open our Tailwind config.js, we have these variables added to the normal config that would come out of the box when you install it in Next.js, indicating we have installed the chadcn correctly and properly. So now let's run this code and start building the home page. We can do that by running yarn run dev, and the code is running on localhost port 3000. So we click on this side, so we type localhost port 3000, and we have the classical Next.js boilerplate code. We don't need this because this is absolutely different from what we have here. The home page we have on the complete project port. So this is different from what we have here, and we are going to clean everything here and start building them. Alright, so let's head back to VS Code, and inside the source directory we have the app component. We have the component which was given to us by chadcn. You get this when you install chadcn. And we have a lib utils file as well, which was installed after we installed the chadcn. Alright, so on this page we can edit everything here and it will be reflected in the localhost port 3000. So we can name this site Finan Smart, which is the name of the application. And when we head back to the Next.js website, we can see we have Finan Smart over here. And this is the layout page as well, where we have our font and the global classes. So if you want to make any changes to the font, this is where it's supposed to be done. We are going to change this font from Inter to a different form, but not now. So let's keep on building. The title of this application should be Finan Smart. And then we have a description, AI powered financial advisor, and we are good to go. So inside the home page, I want us to start building the NavBar, this NavBar in particular. We are going to build this NavBar with this menu here. On this page, we would have two components, the NavBar and the hero section. So starting with the NavBar, we will create a component inside the app directory to hold the NavBar and the hero section. So we open our source folder, open the app directory, and create a new folder. We are going to give it an underscore of component. This is to indicate that this component here is solely for the page route, and when we create multiple pages, we are going to have the component underscore for those pages as well, where the components for the pages are going to be stored. So we are going to get used to this convention, this coding convention here. And inside the component, we are going to create a new file, header.jsx. So we are going to use client because we will be using some sort of view state and accessing the browser features. So when we omit the use client, it's going to run on the server, and hence we are going to run into an error. So use client is here to help us force this component to be a client component. We start by importing React from React, and we import image from Next image. We would also import a button. For now, we don't have the button, so we are going to go ahead and create a button. So the button component is going to be responsible for this. So when we move back to the chadcn website, when we scroll down, we have this command here, chadcn add button. We use this command to add a button or a button component in our application. So when we copy this and paste it here, it is going to install a button component right in the box for us, and it is done. So when we come to the component, we can see a UI folder has been created, and within that UI folder we have a button which was created for us by chadcn. So we have a fully reusable component right out of the box, and we can import that from our header component. So import the button. So we have our button imported, and before we move on, we would have to handle authentication in this page. When you look at this page here, when the user is authenticated, we have the user profile icon on the NavBar, the right hand side of the NavBar, and if the user is not logged in, we have these two buttons. So we have to check the state of the user, whether the user is signed in or not. And to handle the authentication in this application, we are going to use Clerk. This is the official website for Clerk, and the link will be provided in the description. So when we move on to this, when we scroll down and check this installation procedure, we have Next.js obviously, and we have to add the Clerk Next.js first before we can handle authentication. So Clerk is an authentication management service or software as a service or a platform where you can add their components in your code, and they will handle the login and sign in for you right out of the box. So let's copy this command, yarn add Clerk Next.js, and paste it here. Alright, so the Clerk has been installed, and we are ready to use it for the authentication of this project. So for Clerk to work, we have to use it as a provider in our layout.js. So we are going to import Clerk provider, and pass everything as a child for the Clerk provider. So we are not done yet. For this to work, we have to add our own publishable key, which we will get from the Clerk official website. So to get your publishable key from Clerk, we move back to the Clerk website or open a new tab and search for Clerk dashboard. Once you open the Clerk dashboard, you will see the section to create a new project, and once the project has been created, you can navigate to the API keys section, click on the API keys, and then copy everything here. So we have the publishable key, which is this one, and we have the Clerk secret key, which is used for webhooks and other stuffs. So when we copy this, So we can copy the next publishable key and create a new .env file. So .env.local and paste the publishable key over here. Yes, we have to add this to the get ignore so that we don't mistakenly publish this to the internet. Save this, and then we can save this as well and copy this and use it here. So process.env.next public Clerk publishable key. So now we have our Clerk provider set up correctly. We will we will handle the sign in and sign up page later on. Let's move to the header page and use user and also the user button. So we have use user, which is coming from Clerk, and we also have use button. And from then we can create a function called header, and we are going to distract these two objects from the user hook that we called here, from the user hook. So we are going to distract the user itself and also check whether it's signed in. These are the states we are going to use to check and render the respective item on the NavBar. So then we return this div with a class name of padding 5 of flex justify. So this is for the NavBar. Justify center, items center, border, and shadow of small. So we are going to create two items here. So first, let's start with this div here, and just give it the name of Finan Smart. The logo is going to be imported here in a second, and then let's create the final div, which is going to contain the buttons and the user profile icon. So let's type in a button 1 and also button 2. Now let's get rid of everything here. We have to export default, the header, and come back to the page.js and import header. So now we can check on our localhost port 3000 and see what is going on. And then we have our Finan Smart and button 1, button 2 over here. So these two needs to be separated, with this on the left side and this on the right side. And so to do that, we would have to, so let's import our logo. And so let's import the logo, which is going to be from the image tag, the image component we imported from Next.js, and give it a source of chat donut. The SVG will be provided in the asset folder, so you don't have to get worried about this. So we have chat donut.svg and give it an alt of logo, and a width of 40 and 25. So let's save this and refresh the browser. So we have our logo beautifully imported here, same as this. So we have to make sure the logo aligns with the text on the horizontal level. So to do that, we add this class name. So we are going to add a flex. The flex is going to have a direction of row because we want the items to align in a row form. And when you look at this, you can see the text is not aligned, at the center, perfectly at the center, like this one. So to do that, we use the items center. Item center, and that is going to give us this perfect alignment. I made a mistake here. Instead of justify between, I use justify center. So justify between is going to separate these two, and right on the onset we can see this is starting to look like the production one. Alright, so let's change the color of the Finan Smart logo here. So we give it a class name, a text blue 800, a font of bold, and a text of extra large. And that gives us the same size as this one. So let's get rid of this comment here. And for this section, we would do a conditional check here. So we are going to check using the assigned in object that we distracted from the use user hook from Clerk. So we are going to check if the user is signed in, and if the user is signed in, we are going to render the user button. Now this user button is a component coming from Clerk, and this button, so after a user has logged in, Clerk provide this button here to display the profile settings and sign out button for the user. And if that is not the case, if the user is not signed in, we want to render the two buttons that we see on the screen. These ones, dashboard and get started. So we create a div, and inside the div, so let me get rid of this one, and inside the div we are going to have a link. So we have a link, and this link is coming from Next.js. We give it an href, and this is going to link to the dashboard page. And we have our button here, the button coming from the component, the button component being imported here. We have the button, which is also going to contain the text dashboard. And we copy this, paste it here, and change the dashboard to get started. Alright, so let's save this and run it. So we have the default button from chadcn. We have to change this to our own preferred buttons. But before we do that, let's add this class name of flex, gap 3, and item center. And with the button, we are going to add a variant of outline. This variant of outline is going to get rid of the background and make the button transparent. And we want to add our own custom class, so we give it a class name of rounded full. And we have this here, which looks similar or the same to this. We are going to do same for this one. We are going to change the class name to rounded full. And we have this color here. So before we continue on, we have to change the primary color to blue, and we will do that in the Tailwind CSS. So we change this one into this color code 4845D2. And then boom, we have the get started color looking exactly as this one. So we are ready to work on the hero section. Right, this is very simple. We are ready to work on the hero section. So to start working on the hero section, we would create a component inside the underscore component inside the app directory. So we create a new file and name it hero.jsx. And this is going to be a function hero, a functional component. So we would import React from React, import the image as well from Next image, and okay, so before we continue, the hero section have this device mockup here, which looks like a tablet, more of a tablet than a laptop. So we have a tablet mockup here with the dashboard image embedded in it. And to create this, we are going to use a package or a library called Authentication. Authentication is a Tailwind CSS component library which have beautiful layout and component that you can import in your application. So we are going to click on the browse component and select the mockup that we have. So this is the mockup that I used, container scroll animation, and the link for this will be placed in the description as well. When we click on it, it takes us to this page and shows us the step-by-step guide on how to install this or get this rendered on your screen. So first thing first, we would have to install Framer Motion, CLXX, and Tailwind Merge before we can get this working. So let's go ahead and install this. Yarn add. So we have the Framer Motion and all the other packages installed. And when we check on the installation page, it says we should add a file in the lib called utils.typescript, and it seems we already have this after we install the chadcn. So when we check the libs, when we copy this, we can see they are basically the same. And we can skip this step because we already have it and move to this section. So we have components UI. It says we should create a component called container scroll animation.tsx. So we copy this and create this component in our UI directory. Hit enter. Let's rename this into JavaScript and not TypeScript. And copy everything here. Copy everything, paste it inside the component. Now we are going to get a couple of errors because the code is a TypeScript code and we are using JavaScript. So we have to get rid of every TypeScript code within the component before it works. So we get rid of all these. Scroll down to this part, get rid of this, and then get rid of this. And now we have all the errors gone. So we can go ahead and save this. And now back to the hero section. We can import the container scroll. So container scroll from the component we just created. And now we have container scroll. And let's type here export default hero. Right, so inside this component you are going to return a section. So let's go back to the Authentication UI website. So when we check the code here, it gives us the section, right? We have the section. So we are going to copy everything. From here all the way up to this part and paste it here. The reason why we have the section created is to contain all the other divs in the hero section. So the section is going to have a class name of background white, so bj of gray 50, which is more of white, and then a flex, and align all the items in the center with a flex direction of column. Alright, so we can save this, and this is not supposed to work because we don't have any linear.webpg here, any linear.webbp file here, or whatever it is. And so this shouldn't display any image. And when we check the localhost, yes, we can see we don't have any image here. So to add the image, I took a screenshot of the dashboard after completing the application and inserted it and added it into the public directory. So you have that image inside the assets as well. So we can clean this and add the name dashboard.png. Save this, get back to our section, and there's nothing showing at this point. Okay, I think I've seen the reason why this is not working. We haven't called the hero component inside the page component, right? So that is the reason why it's not working. So let's quickly add it and create a hero. Put everything inside one div. And check. Okay, so we have an error. Return is not defined. So I made a typing mistake here. Okay. Return is not defined. Where is it? Return. Okay. Return. And there we go. We have our image rendered beautifully over here. So there's one more thing. We have to change this text. We have to change this text into what we have here. So we will change this into manage your money with AI driven personal, and then we replace this with finance advisor and change the text to blue. So we have text blue 600, 800. Okay, so let's get back, and then we have everything ready, similar or same to what we have in the working prototype. So now we have to work on the sign in page and test this out. So to work on the sign in page, we are going to create an auth directory right inside the app folder. So we create a new folder. So we create a new folder and name it parenthesis routes. And inside this folder, this is going to contain all the routes. So we have to create one for the auth. So we have to create one for the auth. So we create a new folder for parenthesis auth. All right. So we are going to have two folders within this auth directory. And the first folder is going to be sign in -in, and the second directory or folder is going to be sign up. And inside the sign in directory, you're going to create another folder with square bracket, and then we have 1, 2, 3, sign in, save it, and create a page.jxx. So Clerk is going to identify this sign in and sign up page and render them based on how we want them to render. So maybe when the user is not authenticated, render this, or any condition that you would want to show the sign in or sign up page. Inside the sign in page, we are going to import sign in from Clerk and export default a function So this is going to be a functional component, and we have a page. So this is the page for the login. So when we check the login, we have this design here, which is an SVG. So we are going to copy this part and then add the component, the sign in component by Clerk. So this is going to take some time to type it out. So I'll just copy it and paste it here. Return. Paste it. So this section is the image. So we are getting the image from Unsplash, and then we have the home, and also we have the sign up component, which is going to render this sign up for us. So we can save this, and before we move ahead and test this out, let's create a middleware. So we create a middleware in the root directory, middleware.typescript, and then we import authenticated from Clerk. Auth middleware, export default of middleware, and we have the public route, and export const config with this right here. So we have our middleware created, right? So let's move back to the sign in page. So let's create a sign up page before we test it all together. We create a new directory, square, we have dot sign up, and inside the sign up we have page.jsx, and we are going to import sign up from Clerk and export default function page, and then we are going to return the sign up page. Alright, so let's test everything together. So this is port localhost 3000. So when you try to click on dashboard, it says page not found because we don't have a dashboard. So we have to create a dashboard and test it all together. So inside the route directory, we are going to create a new folder called dashboard. And inside the dashboard, we have a layout.jsx. We also have a page, which is going to be the home page for the dashboard, JSX. And then we have a landing. We have a landing.jsx. So let's start with the page. Before we start with the dashboard, I would like us to install the database for this project, and then we continue or pick it up from there. In this project, we are going to use PostgreSQL, and to make this work with Next.js, we are going to use this library called Drizzle, orm.drizzle.team. This is a library that is going to help us use the Postgre SQL in our Next.js very easily. So when we visit this website, the link will be provided in the description. When we visit this site, it gives us the installation procedure or processes. So we will copy everything here and add Drizzle ORM and add everything here. So we will go back to our terminal and paste it. So once we have this installed, I would like us to go to this website as well, console.neo.tech. And when we visit this website, console.neo.tech, it will take you to this page after signing up. And once you are done signing up, you can create your project. So I already have Finan Smart. So you can create a project. So the free plan is limited to one project. And when we click on create project, you will be able to create your own project and click on the project. It will take you to this dashboard. And on this dashboard, you can navigate to the tables section. And then you have your tables. So this is the tables I created for the project. So you have the budget, expenses, and income page. To create your database, you click on this database. So let's get back to the overview and get back to dashboard. Yes, so this is the page to create a database. So on the dashboard, you can create your own database and name it any name of your choice. So I named it Finan Smart because that is what we are using for this. That's the name of the project. So let me create a test. So this is a test database and click on create. So once this is created, I can toggle between my two databases. So click on test and we have this connection string. This is an important string because we will be using it in the application. We will be using it in the application to set up our database. So we have to copy this somewhere. Let's copy this string and move back to the m.local. So in the m.local, let's create this. Let's create Nest public database URL, and then paste it assigned to this variable name, environment variable name. There are a few variable names that we have to create in this environment variable. So that first one have to do with Clerk. So we have to create a Nest public, Clerk sign in URL, and this is going to be /sign in because that is what we have in the app, in the route. So we have auth and then we have sign in. So if you didn't add any dash here, it means you don't have to add a dash in the environment variable as well. And we are also going to do same for sign up. So I will just copy, hitting on shift plus option or shift plus Alt and then the down arrow key. It's going to copy it and then change the sign into sign up, and then we have sign up here, and then we copied this as well, and we have next public Clerk sign up. So you're going to change this to after we have signed up. So after we have signed up, and then we change this to after we have signed in, and then this is going to just be /, and this is also going to be / as well. We would also need next public open API key, which we will handle later on. So the main topic or the main purpose was just to create this next public database URL for the database. Once you have copied this connection string and added it to the .env environment, we can save it, and then let's continue working with the database. So let's create a new file inside the root directory named where I am. So let's create a new file named drizzle.config.js. We are going to export defaults this object. So the first is the dialect. Which is going to be PostgreSQL. And then we have the scheme. The scheme is going to, we are going to import the scheme from utils schema.jsx. We haven't created the schema yet, but right after creating this, we are going to create the schema. And then we have the out to be back Drizzle. We have the DB credentials. We have the URL and the connection strings. So we are going to use process.env we copy this next public database URL and then paste it here. We do same for here. Alright, so let's go ahead and create the schema. So to create the schema, we are going to create a new folder and named it utils. And the utils folder is going to contain everything. So it's going to contain the dbconfig.jsx for the database. It is also going to contain, let's have an index file, index.js. It's also going to contain the schema.jsx. We have this file here called the get financial advice, which we wouldn't touch now, but later on we will touch it. So in the schema.jsx, we are going to create schemas for our database. So we start by importing these from Drizzle ORM, and then we want the PG core. This is a Postgre. we want an integer. We also need a numeric, a PG table, a serial, a varchar, a variable character, and start building our schemas. So we would start with building the budget schema. So let's create a comment here and type here budget schema. And we are going to export budget PG table. We want to create a PG table, and the name of the table is going to be budget, and it's going to have this object. So a budget is supposed to have an ID, right? And the ID is going to be a serial ID and also a primary key. ID dot primary key. And we have a name, which is going to be a variable character name, and we don't want this to be null, so we have a name variable character dot not null, and then we have an amount, then we have a variable character as well, and we don't want this to be null as well, so not null. And then we have an icon, which is going to be the emoji, and the icon is going to be a variable character with a name of icon, simply icon. And finally we have created by, which is also going to be a variable character with a name created by, and we don't want that one to be null as well. So we have our budget schema created, and the not null means required. So next, let's create our income. So basically the incomes and the budget are very similar, if not the same. So we have the income schema, and I'll copy everything here, paste it, and rename this to incomes, and then rename this to incomes. Then finally we have our expenses schema, which is also very similar with the exception of the icon. So I would also I'll copy the income schema and get rid of the icon, change this to expenses, and then the name of the table is going to be expenses. All right. Now let's save this. Okay, so we have we are supposed to add the budget ID. Yes, because they are related. It's a relational database. You know, a budget have an expense. So one budget can have many expenses. So one to many relationship. So we have budget ID, and then we create an integer. And then that is going to be a reference to the budget ID. All right, so we are good to go. Let's move to the index page. So the index page contains a function to convert the numbers to, so this is what I'm talking about. When you move to the dashboard, we have this amount here. We have 1.5k. So this is 11500. So it's 1,000, and it has been rounded into k. So if it's a million, it's going to be an m. So this function is going to do just that. And I will go ahead and copy it, paste it here to save time. Save that one, and then work on the db config. So the db config, we have import, we are going to import new, and we are also going to import Drizzle. And then import everything from the schema. So we're just going to create a constant SQL equals new. Then we pass the URL. So this is going to be process.env dot this and then we have export const database. We initialize the Drizzle with the SQL and the schema. Alright, so nothing has changed. So we are going to push this schema to the neon console. So we are going to use this command to push the database schema to this console so that we'll be able to view the tables right inside our neon console. Since we don't have this is the test database, we don't have any schema being pushed to this connection URL, so we don't have any tables. That's what we're about to do. Push the schema to this new database console and then have our schemas. So we run yarn run db push. So when we move back to the new console and refresh the page, we would see that we have all the schemas created. So we have budget, expenses, and income. We are good to go. So we can go ahead and start writing our dashboard code. So let me close everything here. So that we have a clean interface and start writing everything. Alright, so opening the source, we have app and then route, dashboard, and page.jsx. Okay. Now this page.jsx is going to contain a lot of other code we are going to import from different components. So this is what we are going to do. When we get to any component that we will need to import, we will go ahead and create that particular component. So we are going to type use client, import React. We have use state and use effect. From React, and then we have import use user button, and then we need a card component. So we don't have this component card component, a card info component. So we have to create that one before we continue. So inside the dashboard, we are going to create a folder, named it _component. And create a new file named cardinfo.jsx. So this component is going to contain this card information that we have. So you know what? Let's create the NavBar first before we come back to creating all this to make the code less confusing. So let's create the layout, the navs, and before we create the main, dashboard component, the cards, and how we are going to render all the components. So we are going to use client and import React from React. We are going to import the side nav, which we don't have yet, so we would create that in a second. We have the dashboard header as well. So let's go ahead and create the side nav and the dashboard header. So in the components, we will create a dashboard header component. Then we are going to import the user button from Clerk and import React from React. Create a function dashboard header, and we are going to return this div and give it a class name padding 5, a shadow of small, border of B, a flex, and justify between. And then we are going to have this empty div, and then another div for the user button. So we have after sign out URL. So this is going to show a header inside the dashboard after the user has logged in. So something like this. Alright, so let's create the nav for the dashboard. So we create a new component named side nav.jsx. We would import React use effect from React. And import the image from Next.js image. So we are going to use this icon called Lucid or Lucid React, however it is pronounced. So Lucid React, they have a very beautiful icon package which you're going to use in this project. So let's install that one. You're going to run yarn add Lucid React, and then we are going to import all the icons from Lucid React. So the first icon we are going to import is layout grid. We are going to also import the piggy bank icon, this one, piggy bank. And we are also going to import the receipt test shield check circle $. And then we are going to import the user button from Clerk. Import use path name, import link from next link. Alright, so this user button is going to be displayed here at the bottom here. That's why we imported it. So let's go ahead and create the main component. So a function side nav, and we have a constant of menu list. The first item is going to have an ID of 1, and the name of the menu item is dashboard, and the icon is going to be layout grid. So the icon is going to be layout grid. We have a path of dashboard. You're going to copy this, paste it a couple of times, and rename the component. The second component will have an ID of 2. The name is incomes. We have the circle $, and the name is dashboard / incomes. And then we have the third NavBar with a name budget. We're also going to have the piggy bank icon, and the dashboard is going to be budget / dashboard / budget. Then we have expenses ID of 4. Receipt test as our icon, and the URL is going to be dashboard / expenses. And then finally we have the upgrade. It's going to be shield check. We have dashboard / upgrade. So we have const use path. So a path is equals use path, path name hook, and the use effect we have the path as a dependent, and then we are going to return the component. So we have a div, a class name, age screen, p of 5, a border, and a shadow small. So we create another div, and we have the image of the have this image here, the icon here, Finan Smart icon. So we import the source the chat donut svg. You have the alt logo, a width of 40 and 25, and create the actual name. So the span is going to have the name of the application, the Finan Smart, and then give it a text, a class name, a text blue 800, font bold, and text extra large. We have the class for this as a flex row item center. Then a final div to hold the menu list map. Your menu list dot map menu index. Then we have a link, href menu.path, and the key is going to be the index. We have a header 2, and the class name, we give the class name of what is happening here. Alright, so header 2, let's focus on the menu icon. So the first item is going to be menu.icon, right? Menu.icon, and then we have the menu.name, then a class name of flex we give a gap in between all the elements, and we center the items. We want the text to be gray, so we give it a text gray 500. A font medium, margin bottom 2, padding 4. The cursor is supposed to be pointer, and we want a rounded full. And when the icons are being hovered upon, so when we hover upon these icons, we want something to happen. So we want this nice cool effect. So we do that by typing hover and text primary. So anytime we hover this nav, we have a text with a color primary, and when we hover it, and we also want to change the background to blue 100, right? And this final part of the code is to highlight the current or the active menu path. So we check if the path name, okay, all right, so we have to add this one here. So we check if the path name is the same as menu.path. And if that is the case, it means the link is active. And this is what we want to do. We want to change the text to primary, and a background of blue 100. So we have our dashboard header and the sidebar. We can get back to the layout page and then import them. So we can import the side nav, and then we can import the dash bar. Sidebar and dashboard header. Okay, so let's import the dashboard header, export default, and then we can have the dashboard header. Okay, we are good to go. Now we can import the database. So when we check the layout of the dashboard, we have the total budget and total spent. All these cards are part of the dashboard, and we just finished the NavBar and the site nav as well. So what we are going to do next is to get access to all this from the database. We are going to pull everything from the database and render the count or perform the count, and then show it, inside this main dashboard. So that is what we are about to do. So we import database, and then we also import budget from the schemas, right? And then we import use user from Clerk Next.js, and then we import EQ from Drizzle ORM, and use router from Next.navigation. All right. So now we have all the import. It's time to code the component. So we write the function dashboard layout. This is the layout, so it will accept the children. It's going to be wrapped around most of the items in this dashboard. So we have, let's distract the user from the use user hook from Clerk. Create a variable router from the use router hook. Parentheses supposed to be here and here as well. Alright, so we write use effects, and the use effect is going to check if there is a user and the check user budget. So we are going to create a function, check user budget. This function is going to check if there is actually a budget inside the database of that particular user, or a budget being created by that particular user. So anytime a new user is logged in, we want to check this or refresh the component. So we create the function const check user budget. Check user budget. This is going to be an async function. And we have a const result awaits db. So dot select from budget. So this is just our normal SQL syntax. Select from budget dot where EQ budget dot created by user dot primary email address dot email address. So we are checking if the user's email address coming from Clerk. So this user object is available to us after user has logged in by Clerk. We are comparing that to the budget dot created the user and check if the result, the result coming out, the length, this is going to be an array. So if the result dot length it's equal to 0, which means there is nothing in the coming from the database, we are going to redirect or replace the router with dashboard budget. So we are going to check if the user doesn't have any budget. Then we are going to redirect the user to the budget page to create a budget. We haven't created it yet, but we are going to do that in some few seconds from now. And we are going to return a div with the class name fixed MD, the width of 64, hidden MD block, so responsiveness, right? And we have the sidebar. The site nav. Then we create another div, a class name of MD margin left, (64), and then we have a dashboard header. We pass the children. So all the components inside this dashboard is going to have this layout, right? So we have the sidebar and the dashboard header. So what do we do next? We work on the page and also the landing. Alright, so let's work on the landing. It's a loading page, sorry. So let's work on this real quick and then move to the other stuffs. So this is a functional component, just loading. Export default loading. And we're just going to return a div called loading, and that is it. Import React from React, and that is it. All right, so let's move to the page.js. So we have the user button. Let's import the use user. Import a card info. Let's go ahead and create this card info component. So we are going to import the piggy bank and also the receipt test, all from Lucid React. So receipt test the wallet we have the sparkles and the circle $sign. Before we do this, I want us to test just the sidebar and the navbar before we add all the complex stuffs. So let me get rid of this. And create the function dashboard export default dashboard and add this div here, class name, padding of 8, and then we are going to create an h2 hi, and then we have the name here. Okay, so hi name, and give this a class name, font bold and text for XL. Let's save this, return, and navigate to the dashboard page and see what is happening. So we have the name, the high name here, and the menu items on the left hand side. So let's start building the rest of the components. So on the page.js of the dashboard component, let's build the other stuffs. So right here, this name is supposed to come from the user, before we call the user, let's distract it from the use user provided by Clerk. So const user equals use user, and we can access the full name property of the user object. So user dot full name, and this is going to contain the full name of the user after the user have logged in. So when we get back to the browser, so when we click the dashboard, since we have the middleware implemented, it will prompt us to log in before we move to the dashboard. So when we click on this dashboard, we can select our Google account. So we are being redirected back to the home page. So let's navigate to the dashboard. So we can see on the dashboard we have our name here, Bent Albert. So meaning this is working correctly. So let's continue on building. So we are going to create the welcome text, which is this particular text. So we type, here is what is happening with your money. Let's manage your expenses. We can save this and check the localhost port 3000, and we can see we have it over here. Alright, so let's get back to the Visual Studio Code and add a couple of classes to this paragraph. So you're going to add a text of gray. With this paragraph, we have a card info. We had a card info. Which contains all of these, including the Smart AI feature. So we are going to add those. So create a card info component, which we don't have at the moment. So we are going to continue the card info component. All right. After importing all these icons, we are going to import React, use effect, use state from React. And then we are going to create a function, card info, which is going to have these props, the budget list and income list, which we are going to know where these are coming from. So once we have the props, let's create this constant. So we have total budget and set total budget. It's going to be a state, so use state and initialize it with 0. So this is going to hold the total budget. And then remember, we are building the card info component, so we need all this information: the total budget, total spent, number of budget, and sum of income streams. So const total spent and set total spent. Use state 0. And we have const total income, set total income, equal use state. We initialize that to 0 as well. Then we have const financial advice. You're going to set financial advice equal use state. So this is going to hold this advice here, powered by the AI. And then we create a use effect to check if we have items coming from the budget and also the income list. Items coming from the budget and the income list. So we do that by checking if the budget list, the length is greater than 0, or this pipe symbol means or the income list, the length, it's greater than 0. So we check these two, and if that is the case, we are going to calculate the card info, which is getting the aggregation of the income, budget, and the amount spent. So you're going to call this function. You want to rerun this use effect or this component anytime the budget list and also the income list changes. We are also going to have another use effect. And that is going to get the AI advice, which is the financial advice. So you check if total budget is greater than 0, or the total income is greater than 0, or the total spend is greater than 0. Then we create a const and we fetch the financial advice. For now, this function haven't been created, so we are going to skip it and we will come back to this later on. So const advice, the name of the function is going to be get financial advice, which accept the total budget, total income, and total spend. And we set the financial advice to the result that this function is going to return. So we are going to create this function later on. Then finally we call the function, right, fetch financial advice, this function. And we want to run this component anytime the total budget, the total income, and total spend is changed. So let me comment this out before after implementing the function, then we uncomment it out. So let's create this component, const calculate card info. And then we are just going to create a let variable here, total budget, total spend, and total income. Give it an underscore so that it becomes different from the state that we created. So assuming or imagine this is coming from a database. So this budget list is going to be passed from the page component. here, the page component. This is where we are going to call all the budget list and income list from the database. So we will be looping through the budget list using the for each method, and on each iteration we have the element here. On each iteration we want to set the total budget variable to total budget plus whatever is coming from the element or database, so element.amount. So this is going to accumulate the total amount of the items coming from the array, and we also update the total spend, which is going to be total spend plus the element dot total spend. So we are going to have an object or a property called total spend on the element or on the budget list, which we will work on the page .jsx of the dashboard. We do same for the income list. We also loop through for each element. We update the total income with total income plus element dot total amount. All right, so this is going to store or accumulate the total income, the sum, and we are going to set total budget to total budget, total spend, and total income as well. And we return the whole component. So we create a div. We're going to create a div, and we have the budget list dot length if it's greater than 0. If the budget dot length is greater than 0, this is what we want to do. We want to render the AI advice, which is this particular page, this box here, So we create a div, and then within the div we create another div, right, and give it a class name or this class properties. We have a padding 7, a border margin top of 4, and give it rounded to XL. We want to round the borders of the div. Flex item center justify between. And we create another div, and give it a class name. Okay, we are not going to give this a class name, but within this div we are going to create another div and give it these properties. So flex MB2 with margin bottom 2, flex row, space X1, item center. Okay. item center and have h2. We have Finan Smart AI, and we are going to import the sparkles icon. And this icon is having this rainbow animation. If we take a close look at this, it's having this rainbow animation. So we are going to create that. Class name, rounded full, a text of white, width 10, height of 10, paragraph or padding 2, and then we create the gradient. So to create the gradient, we give it a background of gradient to right, and we want to start from pink 500 via red 500 to yellow 500, and we want to animate this, so we give it a background animate. Perfect. Now right after this div, we are going to create this h2 here, which is going to have the finance advice coming from the function which we are yet to create. So loading financial advice. And the class font light, a test MD. So what this is doing here is load the finance advice when the variable is populated. Other than that, show this loading status. So we are only getting the financial advice if the variable is being populated, and then the loading is going to show. So now let's create the cards, these cards. So we are done with this. Now it's left with the cards. So we create a div, give it these properties: class name, margin top 7. We are going to give it a grade, right? Grade calls of 1, MD of grade calls 2, L grade calls 3, a gap of 5. You have a div, class name, give it these properties. So the first div is containing is the parent div, and these are the children divs that contain the actual cards. So border rounded to XL, flex, item center, justify between, and then we create h2 to give it the title of the budget or the card, and then we have another h2 which have the actual actual total budget. So this is where the format number util comes in, the one we created here. So we want to format this. When they are 1,000, we place it with K, million M, and then billion B. So we call where is the card info? We call format number from utils, and then we pass total budget inside. Remember, the total budget is what we've created here. We are looping through the budget list, which is going to come from the page component. We will set that up soon. And then the income and the rest. So it will have a class name, a font of bold, a text of 2SL. And we give the total budget a text of small, class name, text small. Then we have the piggy icon or the piggy bank icon. We have a class. We are going to give this a background of blue, rounded fully, and some spaces. So background blue, a padding of 3, h of 12, and a width of 12. We round everything fully to get that circle look and give the text a color of white. So we can copy this and paste it 4 times, since we are doing basically the same thing. And change total budget for the second div here. Change total budget to number of budget, and replace this with we are not going to need this because we are just counting the length of the budget coming from the database. So we have budget list dot length, which will get us the length of the budget. We copy this, starting from here. We copy this, paste it, we name it sum of income stream, sum of income streams. Replace this with total income, and then finally the amount spent or total spent. That one's supposed to be in between the budget, total budget, and the number of budget. So we paste it here and change the name to total spent, and change this to total spent. We have to change the icons as well. So the total spend icons is going to be the receipt text. The number of budget is going to be wallet, and finally the sum of income stream is going to be circle $sign. Alright, so we are done with the card info. So let's go ahead and import it into the page JSX. So we have card info. So remember I said the card info will accept a budget list, which is going to come from the database, and an income list, which is also going to come from the database. So let's call those ones. So we start with creating a state. So const budget list and set budget list, which we are going to initialize this to an empty array. And we have a const for income list, set income list equals use state, replace or initialize it with array as well. And finally, we have the expense list. Set expense and then initialize it to an array. So we're going to use the use effect. We want to check if the user is available, and then we get the budget list. So the budget list is going to be a function to get all the budget from the database. So let's create the get budget list function right beneath here. So const get budget list, which is an async function, since we are going to deal with stuff from the database. So the first thing first, create a variable named result, which is going to hold the results coming from the database. And we have await db. This is coming from the config, right? The database config. So we can do dot select, like just normal SQL syntax. Select. What do we want to select? We want to get the tables columns for the budget from the budget schema. And then we create an additional object or field called total spent, which is going to be SQL. Then we have sum of expenses dot amount. So the expenses is coming from the schema that we created, right? So expenses dot amount, and then dot map with a number, because this is a string and we don't want to get any error, so we have to map it with a number. We do same for total item. So you want to get the total item in the budget list. So we do SQL. We count using the count method. We count expenses.id, and then we map with number. Once this is done, once this is done, we select from. So we are selecting from, the budget. We want to select from the budget. So budget and left join expenses EQ with the budget ID and expenses dot budget ID. So we are left joining this dot wherever we find the budget created by the user is equal to the current user.primary.email address, which is coming from Clerk, the user we destructed here, the user object. So we have EQ budget dot created by user dot primary email address dot email address, and we want to group by budget ID. And order by, we want to order in descending order. So this, you have the budgets dot ID, and set the budget list to result. So we are going to call get all expenses as well, and we are going to create the get all expenses function here. Const get all expenses, which is an async function as well. And then create a variable const result equals await db dot select. We want to select the ID from expenses dot ID we have the name from expenses dot name, amount from expenses dot amount, created acts, expenses dot at created at, from budgets. And we want to write join expenses eq budget.id and then we have the expenses dot budget id dot where eq, so wherever the budget dot created by is same as the primary dot email address coming from the user who has logged in. So we have the order by as well in descending order, expense dot id, and then we set the expense list by the results coming from the database. And finally, we create a function for get incomes. So we will call that function here get income list, and create it here beneath the get expenses. So we have const get income list, income list async try catch, create a variable const result as usual to hold the result coming from the database. So await db.select, and then we have the get tables columns with the incomes, and then we have the total amount to be SQL. We have sum and cast the income amount as numeric. The map with number. All right, so all this from the income table, incomes. Then we group by the incomes ID .id and set income list to whatever result is coming from the database. Console.log error fetching income list, and then passing the actual error. So we can pass our budget list and our income list. So we are not done, right? There is more things to do. There are more things to do. We are going to work on this bar chart, right? Then we load the expenses and then the latest budget, and we are good for the home page. So let's get back to coding. So we create a different div that's going to hold the chart and also the other elements, expenses and the budget. And the div is going to have a class of grade and the grade calls of 1. And on a large screen, we are going to have a grade calls of 3 with a margin top 6, a gap of 5. Then we create a div which is going to span, having this class property large column span 2, and then we have our bar chart here. We will create this bar chart in a second. So bar chart dashboard, which will have a prop of budget list. So we are going to use the budget list from the database, and then we have the expense table, which we are also going to create in a second. So we have expenses list or table, we have the expense list, and we have the refresh data, of get budget list. So this component is also going to be created in a second. So we have the bar chart and the expense list table created. Next, let's move on to the div beneath. So we create the div, give it a class name, grade gap 5, h2, give it a name, latest budget, class name, font bold, text large, and we are going to loop through the budget list and render all the budgets. So budget list dot length, we check if we have the length greater than 0, and if that is the case, we are going to loop through the budget list, budget index. Then we have the budget item. We will create this one too very soon. Budget item. Which accept budget as a prop, and we pass in the budget with the key of index, and we have this final loop here for dot map items index a div. We create a div and give it a class name of height 180p with a width of full, background of slate 200, LG, animate, pause. So this is the skeleton icon that loads anytime we open the dashboard for the first time. So when we refresh this page, we have this skeleton here, which is the one we just created, right? These ones over here. We have to create the bar chart dashboard, expense list table, and the budget item. So starting with the bar chart dashboard, so we click on this dashboard components folder and create a new file. Name it bar chart dashboard.jsx. So this is where we are going to create the bar chart. So we are going to import React from React, and import this from React chart. So the chart we are going to use is React chart. So let's install that. Yarn add Rechart. So we have the React chart installed. We are going to import all these from that package. So all these from Rechart. We are going to import the bar chart, the legend, the responsive container, the tooltip, the X axis, and the Y axis. So we create the function bar chart dashboard. Then we have the budget list, which is going to come from this page, right? This page. And then we return a div with a class name, border rounded 2XL, padding of 5, and we have H2, and then we type activity here. So the title here, activity, and give that a class name, font of bold, text of large. Then we call the responsive container with the width of 80%. Let's give it a width of 80%. And a height of 300 pixels. So we have a bar chart. And the data for this chart is going to be the one coming from the budget list. And we have a margin, top of 7. And within the bar chart, we are going to have our S-axis and give it a data key as name, and then the Y-axis we call the tooltip, then we have the legend, then we have bar, data key, total spend, we have a fill color of 4, 8, 4, 5, D2, the stack ID of A. Then we have the bar, data key, amount, we have the stack ID of A, and a fill of C3, C2, FF. Export default, the bar chart dashboard. So now we can call the bar chart, we can import it as the top there. So bar chart dashboard. So we have that imported at the top here, and we can create our expense table and the budget item before we test it out. So before we test the expense list table, we have to create these pages. Let's create the income, budget, expense, and upgrade page. Then we can move ahead and test it all together. So we are going to start with the budget page, then we move to the expense, incomes, and then the upgrade page. So let's create the page for budget. Inside the route and dashboard, we are going to create a page for budget. So we have page.jsx, and then this budget is also going to have its own component. So underscore component. And the components for this are going to be, we have the budget item.jsx, the budget list.jsx, and then a create budget.jsx. We will start by creating the component and then work on the page itself. So before we create the budget item, this is how a budget item looks like. So this is what we are going to do. This video is getting way too long than I expected, so I'm just going to copy everything and explain the code. For the budget item, I'll just paste the code here and try and explain stuff. So we have a div and where is it? All right, so we have a link. We have a link which takes the user to the expenses page, and we also have this div here which have the border radius of 2xl, right? So 2xl, and within the div we have other divs. So this one contains the icon, the name, the items, the price, which is why we have here the icon, the name, the total items, the budget amount, and we have this progress bar here. So we are going to copy and paste this code from chadcn. When we go to their docs and search for dialogues, you'll be able to find the code and copy this code here and then paste it over here. So we have the dialog installed. When we check the component and UI, we have our dialog over here. So we can come back to the create budget, and then this is the code we pasted. It have all the dialog that we installed by using the chadcn. So let's create the page component as well. So we are going to copy everything from the page.jsx and paste it over here. And we are going to repeat the same for income, expenses, and then the upgrade page. So I'll just go ahead and copy this component and rename stuffs. Okay, so let's copy this folder, paste it within the dashboard component, and rename this to expenses. So we have our expenses page created. We are also going to import the incomes and the budget, so we move that as well. We are going to import Openai. So we import the Openai package. We are going to create a const of Openai equals new Openai, which we are going to have the API key process.env.next public Openai API key, and then we add this object and property. So dangerously allow browser to be true. Get financial advice equals async total budget, which is going to come from wherever we are going to call this method. And we have the total income, we have total spend, right? And this is what we are going to do. So we are going to create a variable called user prompt. And this is going to hold the prompt that will be used for training the AI on our own personal database, which is coming from the DB. So we write the prompt in this way based on the following financial data. And then we provide the data. So we have total budget, in USD, we have expenses, we have total spend, right? Total spend in USD. We have incomes. Which is the total income. And then we want the AI to provide detailed financial advice in 2 sentences. To help the user manage their finances. And just like that, the AI will be able to analyze the data coming from the DB of the user, process it, and give a financial advice based off that. So we create a chat completion variable. Await the Openai chat.completion.create. We are going to use, for the model, we are going to use GPT-4, which is the latest version of ChatGPT 4.0. And then the message is going to be the row the row user, and then the content is going to be the user prompt, the variable we created up above, and hit on that save user prompt. All right, okay, so we create a const advice equals chat completion dot choices 0, which is the first element of the array, message dot content, and then we can return the advice. And if everything goes wrong, we can just return the error. Right, so let's export default get financial advice. So when we check the card info component, we have commented out this get AI advice or the get financial advice. So we are just going to comment it and then import the get financial advice from the utils, the one we just created. And with that, the data coming from the database is going to pass through this function, the financial advice, and once it's being received by this function, the AI is going to analyze this data and give a detailed financial advice in the sentence of 2 to help you manage your finances. So that is how it works in a nutshell. Alright, so let's test everything out together. So we click on the dashboard, we sign in, and since we don't have any budget, it takes us to the budget page to create our own budget. So I'll click on create budget, select this dog icon and name it maybe dog food or pet food in general, and allocate $2,000 to it. Click on create, and we have our budget created. So we can add our income as well. So maybe we are a software developer, so we just going to select something that's a robot arm, let's say maybe software engineer, and then the income or the amount of money we make per month is like 15,000 USD, right? And we just created an income source. So when we move to the dashboard, we have our total budget, income source, amount spent, and number of budgets. Since we haven't spent anything yet, so we can click on this budget, and then dog food took $200 add expense, and then the expense has been added. When we move back to the dashboard, we can see we have total spent $200 as a pet food of the expenses of the budget we created, and we have the latest expenses here. And so income, budget, expenses. So I'll just leave this upgrade page for you guys to work on it and maybe turn this into a SaaS. This code is already up on GitHub, so you can clone it and play with it. And I am ready to provide any further explanation or additional explanation that you would want me to do. And this brings us to the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching the video, and see you in the next one.